What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All 22 NFL podcast, the official podcast of the All 22 fantasy football platform, the only fantasy football game with full 53-man rosters, including offensive linemen, where you get to choose personnel packages and have access to PFF grading and advanced stats to make decisions each week. To learn more and sign up, go to all-22.com. And Ray, now I'm going to rely on you to tell us about the subscriptions that we have available.
We have two subscription plans, the All Pro and the Starter. So if you are still just sort of on the fence, you kind of want to see what it's all about, fantasy football with offensive linemen, let me check it out, but you're not ready to kind of dive into the deep end, you can enroll in the Starter plan for just $1 for the entire year for the 2024 season. And then if you like what you see and want to then upgrade to the All Pro plan at just $9.99 for the year as well, that also provides you with premium PFF data, some matchup metrics as well to help you make those start and sit decisions and just help make those decisions to build your roster, team, franchise for the long haul. So we have two great subscription plans for you to take advantage of, whatever is sort of your best fit. And then you can go from there. With each plan, you can join or create as many leagues as you like once you're in the platform.
Awesome. Well done, Ray. I put you on the spot and you crushed it. There is also a couple other things. Like if you want and you're unsure about if you're ready to play, you could request a demo so that we will actually sit with you and show you the platform ourselves. So you get to meet us. You also get to see the platform. Could be kind of cool. And then if you do the All Pro subscription, there's going to be like a hotline where you can reach out and ask us questions about start sit decisions, where to take your girlfriend on a hot date, anything really you'd like. So we're going to be there to answer questions for you at that All Pro level. So Ray, I don't know about you, but I've never eaten cheese before we've podcasts. And my wife had like a plate of cheese out and I just like not thinking went and just like shoved a bunch of cheese in my mouth. And now I'm podcasting and I'm like, I feel like at some point this is not going to be a good thing for me.
Yeah, you're going to have to consciously reinforce the bass in your voice. That's just a terrible decision. Yeah, it's quite frankly selfish of you to do that before coming on recording with me.
I go into the fridge and there's nothing there, and we spent $150 on groceries in a week, and there's no food.
So you bought like 2 eggs.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah. I'm getting a little frustrated right now. I don't know if anybody else out there is feeling this, but go grocery shop and spend $150, and there's not even a snack in my fridge.
You could order something for $10 on DoorDash and get $7 in added fees before you tip the driver too, if you'd like. But at least you get what you want.
I definitely don't like and would not want to do that.
Okay.
Anyway, how are you?
I'm good. I ate lunch and I was happy with my lunch. I had some good leftover pasta. So yeah, ready to go. No cheese in the pasta though, because I knew I was coming on to record with you. So why would I do that to my partner and co-host,
Right. You have like a nice lean frame, right? You're a lean guy. You can eat pasta for lunch and not think about it. But like the rest of us in the world, right? We have pasta for lunch every day. I'm going to show up and I'm not going to be able to fit on the screen, right? So it's like, not everybody's you, buddy.
Okay. I mean, all right. Well, I'll take that. I don't know what you want me to say to that. Cool.
All right.
Thanks.
Anyway, we have been reviewing all of the positions and doing kind of like real-time rankings so that people could kind of walk us through, see our thought process and how we make these decisions and how we rank players in our platform. We do it, on the podcast a little bit more for fun. We don't get into as nitty-gritty the details in which we do when we pull data and do the formal rankings. Ray always complains that it's my equation in the system currently, which is like kind of true. But, I knew we were going to do this and we were going to go through an update in real time. So with that, today we are going to be reviewing cornerbacks. So very exciting. This is the position that both Ray and I played growing up. So it is near and dear to our hearts. Ray, cornerback to me after reviewing was a little similar to receiver where there is a lot of guys to consider. It's just maybe not like receiver where receiver, there's like 40 guys you feel really good about. It's not like that, but there are 40 guys to consider. Where like tight end, we were struggling to get 20.
Yeah. And the problem is that it's such a high variance position from year to year that you like 25 guys, let's say, at the position, and 11 of them are going to have a down year, quote unquote. and not perform up to par, because that's just the nature of cornerback. Only a small amount of plays here or there can really swing your season in one direction or the other. And, sometimes it's just the bounce of the oblong ball that they roll out onto the field. So cornerback is always going to be one of the toughest episodes, or the toughest position groups to really get your arms around before the start of the season. It's one of those deals where after I called out Deron Bland as a sleeper to watch for heading into last year, that I wish I could just retire and never talk about cornerback again, and just, you bat 1,000, you hit a home run your first at bat, and then that's it. You just walk out and go pursue a career in a different sport. I'd like to do that, but here we are. So I'm probably gonna whiff on a whole bunch of these this episode because of that. But we're here to provide you the data, and then you could tell us how wrong we were once the season's over.
You calling Bland is wild, because I had never heard of him, and you called him kind of out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch this guy, see how he does. Absolutely crushed it last year, right? Record-setting pick sixes, had an amazing season. So hopefully you have another gem in. Well, my dog's barking. Hopefully you have another gem in you today.
Yeah, we'll see. As like the dog, they'll always be louder when we're wrong than when we're right. When we're right, they're nowhere to be found. They're just like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. So yeah, it's just one of those deals, but comes with the territory. I'm excited. Cornerback is fun to rank and watch, but again, it's just one of those where you could have the right process and then the wrong result because of a few plays here or there throughout the season.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So are you ready for my tier one? I think that's how we've been doing it. Do you want to keep going this route? I give you tiers.
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. Right. I'm gonna pull up our pages now, and we'll be ready to go from there.
Sweet. Why didn't you have us enlarged like this? This is way better.
Really? You like that? I feel like that's a migraine.
No, it's great. People want to see,
right. Well, it's not going to last long because we're going to the platform, bedroom. So don't even worry about it. There we go. Much better view. Here we are.
Fantastic. All right. So tier one for me is, in fact, Sauce Gardner on the Jets, Pat Surtain on the Broncos, Deron Bland on the Cowboys, Devin Witherspoon on the Seahawks, Trent McDuffie on the Chiefs, and Derek Stingley Jr. on the Texans. So Sauce Gardner had his second year last year. This will be his junior year. Still just 23 years old. Had an 88.6 grade last year, coming off of what was an elite graded rookie season, which is extremely rare for the cornerback position. He has just proven that he is consistently this top tier corner in the NFL. He basically doesn't have a matchup that he just won't show up to and just own it. So in my mind, that is the best of the best. Pat Surtain for me has been this really exciting player that I have a lot of faith in. He's a bigger bodied cornerback that depends on physicality a little more than others. And there is variance in his play. You can see that right now, right? 66.1 as a rookie, 86.8 as a sophomore in 2022, and then 2023, a 69 grade. There has been ups and downs, but with that defense in Denver, it has been up and down as well, right? So I think he's kind of risen and fallen with the guys around him a little bit, maybe too much for an elite cornerback, but I still have a lot of faith in this guy and just the natural talent that he holds at just 24 years old. Deron Bland, 24-year-old corner with the Cowboys. He had a 90.4 grade. We talked about it a little already. This is a guy that when Trevon Diggs went down and he had to step up into that role as the number one guy, he just rose to the occasion. And now the Cowboys are sitting there saying, maybe we have two elite cornerbacks, right? But in my mind, I think Bland actually stepped up and became the better of the two after a really promising rookie season as well with a 73.4 grade in 2022. So I'm really high on Bland. I'm excited for him. Witherspoon was a rookie last year, 23-year-old with the Seahawks, had an 84.1 grade in his rookie season. He did miss a little time just with some nagging injuries that occurred during the season. But this is a guy people were really high on. You and I liked him. You didn't love him. I liked him more than maybe you did. But what he showed on the field is that his size at 181 pounds wasn't that big of a deal breaker, considering he does rely on some serious physicality for 5'11", 181 in the NFL. But he crushed it as a rookie. He was making plays all over the place, did a really good job pairing with Tariq Woolen and becoming the number one corner there in Seattle. Trent McDuffie is on this elite list as well for me, 23 years old, 82.9 grade last year with the Chiefs. And it was really what he did in the playoffs that was even more exciting. This is a playoff superstar last year that proved to the Chiefs that they didn't need to keep L'Jarius Sneed around to still have a really great cornerback room. Trent McDuffie stepped up into that role. He is a little undersized, right? Again, 5'11", 193 pounds to be your number one corner. There might be some matchups where you say that's a little scary, but guess what? McDuffie proved that he has this elite level of play in him. He is very nuanced in the way he matches routes, and he's a player that I am very confident in going into 2024. And then Derek Stingley, who is your boy, 23 years old, 81.8 grade last year with the Texans, still such a young guy. Struggled really mightily in his rookie season. But again, that team in Houston was in a much different place in 2022 than it was in 2023. He is a guy that, again, the natural talent is just there. Maybe he doesn't have that alpha dog mentality, but he is proving to be a really good, again, coverage corner, can match routes, can be sticky. When he's healthy, he can do those things. Again, he missed time. This is a guy that missed time, but somebody I'm still confident in to be in that elite group because I believe in the talent that's there. So, Ray, those are my 6. I have 6 guys in that tier 1 group. Curious if you think there's somebody else that should be in that group.
I think that's the tier. I think you start to stretch and project if you go beyond that, because there are names a lot of people like that we'll probably get to in the next tier, like Christian Gonzalez, who didn't have much time because of injury. A lot of people like AJ Terrell and such, but any of the other corners that are playing at a high or elite level currently have a few more years under their belt. They're probably a little closer to exiting their primes, not as much time left. So I think that core 6 that we discussed with Sauce, with Surtain, with Bland, with Stingley, with Witherspoon, I think that's the core group. And once you get beyond those names, you start to either sacrifice a little bit on the performance side or a little bit on the age and longevity side as far as what's left to work with. So these 6, you can have an argument either way. I feel like McDuffie's probably the most slept on name of that group. But other than that, I think Sauce is the clear number 1. Surtain, to me, has fluctuated a bit more with his situation than I would have thought. Based on his style of play and kind of the soundness to his game, you would have thought that he was one of those corners that is just sort of variance proof, more or less. And he's still fine. I mean, I think again, in a pretty awful situation over there, in just a mess of an organization. I mean, he's still, again, high 60s, just missing out on kind of that 70 tier there is perfectly okay. You just expect a little bit more than that from Patrick Surtain. So again, I think he's worthy of being in this tier, but probably has shown a little bit more variance to his game than we thought possible. I love Stingley if he's healthy. We talked about how he had that foot injury, I believe, coming into the league. Rookie year was kind of a wash, but then when healthy, here's what he can do. And that situation has only gotten better with Danielle Hunter alongside now Will Anderson, and then the offensive improvements that they've made. I mean, once he regained his footing, he missed some time with injury and then kind of took a couple games to get back. And then after that, the last month and a half of the season, he was just phenomenal. So you could really put these in any order. I think for sure, though, Gardner is 1. You would think Bland is 2, but you could project a little bit of variance there. There's a defensive coordinator change. And for all of Quinn's warts as an overall defensive coordinator, I think he was phenomenal when it came to individual player development in the secondary and in the pass rush. So I think Bland probably loses a little bit on that side of the fence with the loss of Dan Quinn in Dallas, but is still going to be a playmaking corner and such. I don't think you can ever realistically expect, a record-setting historic season at a position like cornerback in back-to-back years. So I really don't know where to go with 2. I don't know where to go with 2. I think I would go with Stingley, but even then there's still some concerns because he does get nicked up a lot and misses some time.
Yeah, I would really struggle to go Stingley just because the level of play, that high-end level of play, which he just started to touch on this past year, was after missing so much time in both
Right.
seasons, right? And that's super scary if you're talking about a number one guy that you're going to rely on. And these guys you're going to have to take early. Like cornerback is a valuable enough position that if you want one of these top 6 guys, like you're taking them in, I don't know, round 4, maybe, right? Maybe round 5. Like these are valuable pieces. So I don't know if I can just say I trust this guy enough that I'm going to take him this early. So I think I would wait on him. And I'm not saying far. I'm not saying far.
Right.
But it's hard for me to, at this point, pass on a guy like Witherspoon.
I knew you were going to say that.
There is a bit of reasoning behind it that I want to talk about with you, because I think, you talked about Surtain and the variance with him, and Surtain would naturally be my choice for number 2 because he is the guy I think is just the most talented. Like I like his play style. I like his frame. I like Surtain a lot, but they haven't done anything in that infrastructure to give me confidence that the situation will get easier. Then you look at a guy like Witherspoon in Seattle, who they just drafted another defensive interior that has tremendous pass rushing skills. They shored up the middle of that defense. They enhanced that pass rush by getting those guys. And I think to myself, and I say, okay, so Seattle's situation might actually be getting a lot better, right? And Witherspoon did great with the situation not being as good. So will he just continue to ascend? And can he stay healthy enough to do that? It's really hard for me at this point to be like, it's not Witherspoon. And I think there is an argument, like you said, to be made for even McDuffie. Like McDuffie now is the guy that they've chosen to be the number 1 cornerback there. They've year after year invested in shoring up that defensive line and adding pass rushers to that unit. And it started to pay off last year, right? And then McDuffie in the playoffs again just proved that he has the skill and the nuance to be a number 1 corner at a high level for a championship caliber team. Like if you told me you wanted McDuffie too, I probably would be okay with that. But if it's my vote, I think it's Witherspoon. I think it's Witherspoon, McDuffie, Bland, Surtain, Stingley.
Witherspoon, McDuffie, Bland, Surtain, Stingley. Maybe. It's just hard to get over the profile of Witherspoon, but it's sound. I think Stingley's the bigger risk of those names. But man, it's that upside is tantalizing. I think post week 12 he might have been the number 1 corner in the league.
Yeah, he did great.
And you know how I do. I chase that.
The caveat as well with the Seahawks is like no more Pete Carroll, right? What does that look like? What does that become? Are those underrated guys that they drafted and that did so well, do they still continue to do well under a new head coach? And it's like, that's probably one of the coaching situations that I was like the least excited about the changes that were made, right? I think Pete Carroll was an elite coach. So to go from him to, I forget the guy's name, but
Mike McDonald over there, and
it's just
Aiden Dirty as a DC.
Didn't make me too excited.
I agree, but I think their profiles are safer. So I'll let you have these. And
okay, which one do you want to, McDuffie or Witherspoon?
McDuffie, he's a melonhead, but I think overall there is some more certainty with McDuffie, given they're the same age. I would go with McDuffie, but
McDuffie 2, Witherspoon 3. I said Bland 4. You good with that? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Surtain 5, Stingley 6.
Ooh, I don't know if I'm letting you have that one.
Surtain over Stingley.
I think. I mean, the worst case scenario, correct? Worst case scenario here is what? That Stingley has a decent year, and that puts his 3 years on the field equal to what Surtain has put on the field for 3 years. I just don't. I don't know. I think the Texans got so much better that if we're sitting here looking at these 2 young corners, one of them is coming off that high and ascending. I'm not sure how you could put Surtain over Stingley right now. The only thing is health, and that in itself is a projection. And I know it's a big thing, but it's a big thing. But it's not like Stingley's coming off like a torn or shredded knee or anything right now. It's just he's had some injuries in the past. But as of right now, today, there's nothing wrong with it. He's not rehabbing anything right now.
Yeah. The 3-year window, I agree with you. I think it's Stingley, right? And because we've seen enough moves that'll impact the next 3 years in Houston, that is more comforting than getting a quarterback that might be a, total question mark and not shoring up anything on the defense, not having any edge rushers that made our top 32. I don't think like that's a major concern. And then even the defensive interior, like, I don't know if there's going to be a guy in that defensive interior room that's going to make our top 32. There may be one, but like, might be grasping at straws there, right? So like, I definitely agree with you that I think Stingley's situation is so much better. The injuries are concerning. The personality is a little concerning. Like, Surtain gives off cornerback one vibes. Stingley does not, right? But Stingley proved that he can do it last year. So let's do that. Let's do Stingley at 5, Surtain at 6, and let's move on to tier 2. I am shocked that we got through tier 1 with that little
in less than 30 minutes.
Yeah, that was insane. Okay. Tier 2 are guys to me that had elite promise, right? Not necessarily the guys that I think are the name brands that we will get to, but the guys that to me had elite promise that can make that jump and that are worth betting on at their ages compared to some of the other guys that we'll get to. So Christian Gonzalez, you mentioned before, Pat's cornerback, still 22 years old, had some injuries in year 1, but when he was on the field, he absolutely was amazing. 80.8 grade last year in that time, right? It was a quick sample size, but really looked good in that short amount of time. So I would definitely bet on him to be in that tier 2. JC Horn, another guy that, dealt with injuries, but when he is on the field is a major impactful player for the Panthers. 23 years old, still in year 3, 84.1 grade last year. Again, limited sample sizes. But this is a guy that, again, I can't quit on, right? 6'1", 205 pounds, plays like an absolute maniac. Like, this is a guy I like. His game is played in a way I like. Definitely concerns about the situation, but we'll get to that. I think another guy, AJ Terrell, you mentioned, 25 years old still for the Falcons, 74.6 grade last year. He was one of the top graders. I think he was the top graded cornerback maybe the year before, if not the year before that. Still a young guy and has shown that he has played at an elite level. So I'm still betting on him to be that guy year over year. Coaching staff got better. Team got better. They've added talent. I'm definitely not, wincing on taking Terrell. Who else here? We have Paulson Adebo from the Saints. Adebo, 24 years old, 78.7 PFF grade last year. Kind of was a surprise for them, but has been kind of consistently really good in his early career. Definitely betting on him. Christian Benford is a guy on the Bills that stepped up, another kind of surprise. 23 years old, still 82.8 grade last year. And they've slowly and very quietly have built out like a very promising cornerback room there in Buffalo. And Benford is the guy that has kind of stood out the most in that group. So somebody I would include in this tier. And then I think I have one more guy, Jalen Johnson. Yeah, of course. How could I forget? 25 years old still.
The guy that I gave away after 2 subpar years. Fantastic.
90.8 grade last year. Again, that situation is getting better. They're investing more money. I don't think it changes too much from last year on the defensive side of the ball. They didn't do that much, but there is an aura when a team is in a winning mode, as opposed to we have a good defense, but our offense stinks and there's just not going to be that much that changes, right? I do think that's a difference, but Jalen Johnson has been incredible. He just got paid, which always makes me a little nervous, right? He had kind of some subpar years before that payday year, but I do think that the situation got better and it will continue to improve. So a guy like Johnson is definitely worth investing in. So that is my tier 2. Definitely more debate, I think, in this tier with other guys that I left off that list. Curious what your thoughts are.
You know who you forgot, Chris. I mean, you know who you forgot.
If it's the guy I think you're going to say, yep, it is. I actually had him in tier 2 and took him out just because I don't know if he's there yet. I don't know if he's those guys yet, right? He might be right under it. He might be just in that tier 3, but the top of a tier 3. I don't know if he's tier 2 yet. And for those of you that are listening only, Ray just pulled up the card for Joey Porter Jr., of course, Penn State alumni.
The metrics are further along than the grading for Porter Jr. The positioning isn't always the best, right? But like you'll see here, if you just go down, even just his player news and just look at some of the metrics posts, Again, low completion percentage. When targeted, he's got the frame. When he's lined up in man, he's doing a fantastic job. There were a couple issues with a couple penalties here, and he was a little bit leaky early on in the season, but by and large, he kind of came on really strong as a player overall. It's more so just some things that need to be cleaned up. But while it doesn't always look the prettiest at this point in his career, I mean, he was just a rookie. His metrics are top notch, and they're super promising indicators moving forward. And it's not as if he was coddled is probably a strong word, but as a rookie, I mean, he wasn't in a situation where he had everything made for him. Yes, they have TJ Watt on the defense, and they're kind of solid and everything, but this Steelers team as a whole, and even to a certain extent, that defense is not what their reputation has been the last decade plus. They're not that type of unit anymore. They're still solid and what have you, but it's not as if Joey Porter Jr. was out there on easy mode. He drew tough assignments throughout the year and held his own and then some. He's got the frame. I think he's set to just continue to ascend here. And I think considering some of the other names on this list, I think this is a more straightforward projection. And it's just a matter of, okay, does he clean up a little bit of the hands and this and that, which all young corners can and will do. I don't see how you leave him off based on some of the other names in this tier.
There's something that concerns me in Pittsburgh, and it's a team I love what they've done, right? Like, it's like, hey, we have no shot to get one of the top quarterbacks in a draft, so we're going to sign Russell Wilson for league minimum. That's not going to affect our long-term strategy on the roster, and it could give us like a nice upside on our team. They went and spent multiple high-end picks in back-to-back years on offensive line to fix that because it's been such an issue. And I think they've done a fantastic job of that as well. But what that means is the other side of the football has kind of been avoided, neglected, right? Like aging. And what happens when Casey Hampton finally hangs it up and TJ Watt just doesn't have it, much left in the tank? Like, what happens to...
I assume you mean Hayward, not Hampton. I think you hung it up a long time ago.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I was like, damn, what year is it? Are we talking about Joey Porter Sr. here? Which...
Sorry about that. Yes, you're right. What happens when those guys hang it up, and how does that affect Porter Jr., right? We just talked about some of the corners on this list that have that elite level upside, but the situation is just not great for them. So is that going to be the case in Pittsburgh, or is Pittsburgh just one of those situations where Mike Tomlin is such a good head coach, he'll always figure it out. He'll always find guys to fit those roles, right? Like Alex Highsmith coming in and just being an absolute difference maker. Will they continue to do that? I don't know. It's a bit of a gamble. And also, like, again, we saw a lot of promising things for Joey Porter Jr., but we also saw games where he was matched up against number one receivers where he just looked outmatched.
We also by Casey Hayward mean Cameron Hayward. You just had us on a wild ride for names there, but yes. But again, this is a rookie drawing number one assignments. I'm just saying.
Who is the corner across from him too?
What does it matter?
Kind of matters, right? Like matchup wise, like we're talking about Deron Bland, who might be getting like number two assignments. It's like, yeah, he's going to grade incredible because he's a number one corner that's not going to have to follow around AJ Brown every game, right? But like Joey Porter might have to do that.
Yes, but the difference, well, I wouldn't say the difference, because I mean, Bland had to kind of step up there given the loss of Diggs early in the season with a torn ACL. But yeah, I mean, it's a fair point, but that's why he's in tier 2, I would say, and not tier. I get it. He didn't have the performance for tier 1 just yet, but yeah, Dante Jackson it's not that, that's not someone that opposing offenses are going to shy away from. So there is going to be more onus on Joey Porter Jr. I just, when you're drafted 32nd overall, it says selection 33, but I think the Dolphins lost their first round pick that year. That comes with the territory. I think the thing is he's already been thrown into that fire. We're not projecting a step up in competition for him is I guess my point. We've already seen him line up against the best. That he was the guy who drew those assignments last year anyway as a rookie. So it's not something he hasn't seen before.
Sure. Okay. All right. Let's pause the debate on him for a minute, because it's really just deciding what tier to include him in. But
Mhm.
who's going to be the top guy in tier 2?
Logic would say AJ Terrell. I would say I'm in on Christian Gonzalez, just what he showed before his injury. And it's a shoulder. It's not as if he, again, he's coming back from an ACL or anything like that, where you worry about the time to get back to form and how, even in 2024, people, players are not always the same coming back from injuries like that. We're talking about a shoulder with Gonzalez here. I liked him coming in, loved him coming into the NFL. He showed flashes of greatness in his short time in the league before going out with injury last year. I would put Gonzalez at the top of this tier.
I'm going to struggle. I'm going to struggle with that. And I think you're right with that. Those are the next two, right? And I think the thing about Terrell that's fascinating to me is like, he's been really good with some really bad teams around him. And he hasn't really been situation dependent like some of the other guys on this list. Like, he has immense talent and he's done it consistently. The situation is just getting so much better. And then I look at Gonzalez's situation and I'm thinking new head coach who I have absolutely like no faith in at all. The defensive situation has not gotten better at all. Again, name an edge rusher in New England. I dare you. And I just worry. I worry, right? And they're paying guys that shouldn't have been paid, right? Like Christian Barmore, they gave the absolute bag to. He's not that level of player. And I think that's what teams do when they're a little bit desperate, right? It's like, we need to maintain what we have, and what we have isn't really that great. I worry about that for Gonzalez, but I do agree that I think the talent is absolutely phenomenal. And again, we're just saying, should one be above the other? It's not, are there 5 other guys that need to be debated here? So, I mean, if you feel really strongly about Gonzalez being the next guy, I'll give it to you. But if it's my vote, it's Terrell.
I mean, he's changing his number to 0 this year, so how could you not? I get it. It's splitting hairs. And so, again, if I'm on the clock, I'm taking Gonzalez if they're both available to me in round 5 or something to that effect. But for the sake of making rankings and following some semblance of criteria and some risk aversion, I could see Terrell as the name there. So if we're going to put Porter in tier 2, let's put Terrell here. I'll give you that at the top here. Although if you look at this pattern, he's maybe due for another 65 in grading, but agree with everything you said. Situation's gotten better. He's entering the prime years of his career, so I'm okay with it.
Okay, so we're going to go Terrell at 7. We're going to go Gonzalez at 8. I'm going to throw. It's so hard at this point, right? Because you need to decide at this point if you're going to go and take a risk on J.C. Horn and the upside that he has. Are you going with the Joey Porter Jr.? Are you buying into what the Bills have in Bedford? Are you going with a Adebo and just saying that he's the young guy there that's going to continue to ascend? Is Jalen Johnson, right after being the number 1 graded corner in PFF last year, is he the guy that we put here? And he I think he probably has the biggest argument to be the next guy on this list. But I am so concerned with like, hey, why hadn't he done it before the year he was going to get paid, right? Like, I always have that fear that it's just like a payday performance and it goes back to neutral after that, right? Like, that always concerns me. Still 25 years old, though, entering, like you said, the prime of his career. 25, that's when you do that. So maybe he is the guy here. Maybe he's 9.
Remember how we talked about we're gonna talk about some guys and place them highly, and they're gonna have some down years just due to natural cornerback variance. This might be one of those names, but it's hard to keep him off because he was elite last year. He was the number 1 corner last year, and the Bears got better. So it's kind of hard to place him much lower than this, especially if you're talking about a name like Christian Benford. Like, no, I'm putting Jalen Johnson above him. I think it's fair to put him here, but it's one of those like, all right, just get ready. You never know. It's one of those, you never know. This might be one of those, hey, I dropped back down to top 30 instead of top 3 in 2024.
Right. Okay. So let's put him there. I think we're both in on that. Okay. So after him, I want you to recommend the next couple guys.
To me, because of the profiles and pedigrees, And I think over the long term, profile and pedigree are what sort of takes you home, what really carries you. To me, that's Horn and that's Porter. It's just, is Horn going to stay healthy? And, how good is Porter going to be? How much is he going to improve? Horn was great when he was on the field finally last year, but he's been hurt all the time. But you just look overall at a high level. I mean, he's steadily improved his on-field performance whenever he has been on the field. So given that, plus the improvement of the Panthers overall, their defense was always pretty okay. You saw the step up and improvement on the line from Brown. I know they lost Burns, but we never really saw the best that he could offer there. I think it's Horn here. You just look at his overall pedigree and performance. There's really no down cycle in his performance. It's just his availability. So you kind of hold your nose and say, this guy's a great corner. How much longer am I going to let him fall? And then again, if you're chasing pedigree, you got essentially a first round pick in Porter from the Steelers. He's kind of locked in as their top guy. He's got the size. He's kind of the prototype. I think those are the next two names here. I don't know if I want to stretch for anybody else at this point.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm good with that. Horn, it's one of those things too, is like when he does have a healthy season, because he will eventually have a healthy season, right? Like it's just a matter of when. It will be special, right? And I don't want to miss out on that over some of the guys that you're talking about, right? That we're talking about. So I'm good with him at 10. You want Porter Jr. at 11. You know what? I agree with you. I think the pedigree, the draft pedigree, the name is enough for me to say the team is going to be so bought in on him and invested in him that they will get the best out of him, as opposed to, again, like a Benford or a Adebo who have been incredible and kind of risen to the occasion. But the team, the Saints, for example, went and drafted Kool-Aid, right? Like I don't know if they think he's a number one corner for the long haul, right? They might have already gotten a guy that could come in and be the number one corner there in this year's draft. So I'm good with Porter Jr. at 11. Benford and Adebo were the two guys in my tier 2 that we haven't ranked yet. Do you want to hear my tier 3 before we rank those two guys?
I'm just curious, but yes.
Okay. So L'Jarius Sneed on the Titans now, 27 years old, 71.1 grade. Jari Alexander, 27 years old on the Packers, 68.2 grade last year. Denzel Ward, 27 years old on the Browns, 69.6 grade last year. Tariq Woolen, 25 years old on the Seahawks, 67.1 grade last year. And then Trevon Diggs, 26 years old on the Boys with an 80.7 grade. To me, this is the group of guys that most of them will give you high-end performance that will never reach a floor that's not startable. They will also potentially have years where they are the best cornerback in the NFL. Like Jari Alexander, I think, has done that almost twice now. But the consistency, right? We're talking about like Sauce Gardner might be the only cornerback in this game that will give you consistent year-over-year performance. Everybody else is going to have some level of variance. This group of guys has an extreme level of variance. And also the 3-year window might be tight, right? Like when you're a 30-year-old corner, you're done. Like that's just about all that's in store for you, right? So L'Jarius Sneed, Jari, Ward, those guys are 27. That 3-year window may not exist, right? You might only have 2 legitimately great years out of them. And again, with that variance, I think you're probably lucky if you get 1 elite year out of them and then 2 more mediocre years. But again, these are guys that are very good football players. Their teams trust them to be the number 1 corner on the team, and that's valuable, right? So that's my tier 3. Again, I struggle with those guys versus Benford or an Adebo because while those two guys are younger, promising players on their team, are we, taking those guys over the number 1 cornerbacks and some of the best teams in the NFL, guys that their teams have paid them and invested in them, and guys we know are just naturally talented and have what it takes to be great, right? We never question that with the Jari Alexander. Like you never question that. But is he going to do it for you consistently enough where the age is less of an important factor for you?
Yeah, I think hearing that, I think it's an appropriate cutoff for Benford, which not a lot of people have talked about, but I mean, he's a breakout candidate if you want to say that he hasn't yet broken out. I think Benford is an appropriate cutoff there when you consider performance and age before we kind of sort through our tier 3. So let me just pull up his card here. Again, strong finish to the year overall. I think he's the clear starter there alongside Johnson. So
age is missing, but he is 23 years old.
He's 23 years old. Yep. And so given that, I think it's fair to keep him here at the bottom of tier 2. And then the others all kind of share a similar profile. So I think we put Benford here, and then let's move on to tier 3.
Adebo, though?
Adebo after him.
Okay.
Same. I don't like the vibes, man. I don't like the vibes in New Orleans. I say this every episode whenever one of their players comes up. I just don't.
Dude, funny as heck, because we were talking about that, right? And what was the conversation last episode? What did I say?
I don't remember. I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. You know, whenever you ask me if I remember something, I never remember it.
They take the guys we would have taken. Who did they take this year in the second round? Kool-Aid, dude.
They did. They took Kool-Aid.
They take Kool-Aid. They take our guys. Like every single pick they take, I'm like, man, Fwanga and Kool-Aid, those are my boys. Like those are exactly the picks I would have made at those spots. The exact picks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's what they do. It's what they do, but I still don't like the vibes out of there. It's just
keep saying that.
I wouldn't have gotten Derek Carr. So
I think that's the only problem you have with
you.
They just invested in the quarterback that you would not have invested in,
and they're just perpetually in debt.
Yes,
in the salary cap. So I would put Adebo there, but Adebo's one again at the start of this episode. Hold your nose, because he could continue on that ascension, or I always lose my place once I start scrolling through the player page here. But he could kind of continue that ascension, or he could just fall right back off. And everybody 3 years from now is like, remember that one good year Paulson Adebo had?
Right.
And it could be one of those.
It was kind of like he had 4 elite weeks, and then the rest of the season's kind of like, okay.
Yeah. But he's young. Yeah. I don't know, man. The thing is, he doesn't really fit with all the other names in tier 3. And given his performance, he doesn't necessarily relegate to a tier 4 because he was a top 15 overall corner last year.
Right.
It's just how likely is he to repeat that? I think this is one where it's like, it's very risky. I probably let someone else draft him. And if they're right on him, then great. They got their guy. It's a little too much risk for my liking, but age, trajectory, performance, I see why you slot him at the end of tier 2.
Okay. So he's going to be 13. Then we get into that tier 3. And again, that was L'Jarius Sneed, Jari Alexander, Denzel Ward, Tariq Woolen, and Trevon Diggs. I think there is an argument to be made for some of the rookies in this year's draft to be in this conversation. I had those guys the tier below this because we talked about it. Like, while the corners in this draft were exciting and there were some good names and it was a very deep class, I don't think that any of them had surefire elite number 1 corner, can't miss traits. So I kind of think that I would still take some of these older guys over some of the rookies.
Yeah. This wasn't the cornerback class to say, oh yeah, these guys, I'm going to slide them right into tier 2. Like they're not. This wasn't that class. That's fine. I may make a case to move down Trevon Diggs only because of the injury that he suffered in season ACL. He's still got some work to do there. Even when he's back, it's going to take some time to get back into form. Cowboys have a pretty tough schedule. He's drawing Amari Cooper week 1, and Diggs has never been the sticky type to just, I'm going to, stay in your back hip pocket the entire way through your route, no matter where you go. He's more so the sort of drive down and close on the ball and make plays type of player. So to not be back into full form, I think there's going to be some growing pains in 2024. So I would move him down a tier, or at the very least have him at the end of this upcoming tier, because he performed well, for whatever it's worth, those 2 games before he went down and practiced with an ACL last year, but I think it's going to take some time to get back there. And I think we're going to see another kind of a year more like 22-ish before we get back to what 2023 Diggs was looking like before he went down. Just keep going.
I struggled because I actually had him in tier 5 and I moved him to tier 3 because when he is on the field and when he is healthy, he is this very, very talented, very good corner that takes some unnecessary risks at times, which affects his grading. But I think last year he kind of proved that if he does play a more conservative style of football, that he can be, one of those more elite, standard, traditional corners. I struggle with just saying that, like, he's not going to get back to that. It's still just, 26 years old. But I'll take your word for it. Maybe we move him down.
Yeah, I don't like it. It makes me feel bad, but ACLs and corners, it takes a little bit of time, I think.
Okay, so I'm going to nominate that. I think Jari and Sneed are probably the top 2 of this class.
You went Sneed now in Tennessee. You like that?
Not really. But I've
so
watched
I'll make
a
a case,
and I like it.
I'll make a case for Tariq Woolen here, in the sense that in man coverage, which was a pretty small sample size last year, he only had 13 total targets in direct man coverage. He only gave up 5.5 yards per reception, I think, on 4 receptions. So again, low sample size here, but knowing what we know about him and his profile as far as just his physical makeup, I think with Aiden Dirty, the new defensive coordinator there, who was under Dan Quinn the last few years, where in Dallas he ran the 3rd most man coverage calls in the NFL over the last 3 years from 21 through 23. And so even if you say Mike McDonald kind of has the reins there as head coach with the defensive background, he ran middle close coverages. So again, the deep middle, usually cover 1 or cover 3, 47% of the time on defense. And that plays right into Woolen's archetype as kind of like a long press man, deep third, bump and run type of corner. I think that fits him really well. And if they continue that style of play, I think he's just going to just continue kind of where he left off, to be honest. And I could see a big year or another big year, I'll say, from Tariq Woolen. I think he's poised for a big 2024 season. He's got Witherspoon alongside him as well. So again, you talked about how they're steadily improving on the defensive side there in Seattle. I like Woolen on this list. While again, he hasn't had that fantastic breakout year yet, I think if they make or continue that shift over to a style that fits him better, I think he's a big beneficiary of that.
I mean, you made a really good argument. I don't really have much to debate there. I think Woolen is a very competent number 2 corner. And I think, statistics have shown, kind of painted a better story for him than maybe his PFF grading has. So he's gotten a little bit more press than somebody with his level of performance typically gets. But what's even more interesting is this is the first guy we're talking about as this level of corner that's the number 2 corner on a team, right? The Seahawks, the Dolphins, the Bills, the Browns, the Jets. I was so impressed when I went through this list and looked at some of those cornerback groups. They are special. They are truly, truly special. So I like it. I mean, Woolen is a very, again, he's 25 years old. He has plenty of time to continue to develop and make it there. So I'm good with making him number 14. I think you made a good argument. Let's put him in there.
Let's do that. He needs to tackle better. That's for darn sure.
But, yeah.
But I think one thing that kind of helps his longevity too is the fact that because him and Witherspoon are so different physically, it kind of helps the Seahawks in knowing where to kind of match him up week to week. He can draw more favorable matchups to his end. He's not going to have to. I mean, there's always going to be times where you have to, but he's not always going to default take on a number 1 receiver, even if that receiver is kind of the quick separator type agile, run you across the field type guy. A lot of times Woolen doesn't have to worry about that. What he does have to do is not be the 113th best run defending cornerback in the NFL, because you still have to make some freaking tackles when they come your way, so you don't drag the rest of your coverage metrics down. So,
which again is so funny considering Devin Witherspoon and his strengths, right?
Exactly.
Complete opposite. So you're right. Yeah, I think that is great. They can use them in to their strengths. That's 14. I said Snead and Jari being the next guys. I don't know if there's anybody else you want to argue to go before them.
I think that's fine. I'd probably have Alexander above Snead just because I like the Packers more than I like the Titans in that environment. But I think, you can flip a coin with these two.
Yeah, I was really surprised that the Packers didn't end up drafting one of the corners. And it was one of my biggest disappointments in the draft. Not because I think Jari needs to be replaced or anything like that, but I think that the room got really thin quickly after they traded away Rasul Douglas last year. Again, to the Bills, that room got stronger. The Lions and the Eagles basically made sure that the Packers couldn't get any of the guys they wanted. And the Lions, I think, traded up before the Packers to get Terrion Arnold. And I think the Eagles traded up in the second round right above the Packers, the pick before, I think, to get Cooper DeJean. So that was frustrating.
That would have been such a Packers pick.
It would have been. But, again, I think Jari is good enough and has done enough and has played at such a high level in certain years that I would definitely agree with you that he should be the guy above Snead. Snead is special. He's done some really spectacular things. Again, a steal that the Chiefs had in the draft in the 4th round. But just that year-over-year consistency for Snead has been great. Again, more of like a bigger, stronger frame on him as well. So he is kind of matchup proof. Like there's no situation that he can't handle. I like that about him. I guess the only other guy I would consider for that spot is Denzel Ward for the Browns, who also has had very, very high-end years, still just 27 years old. But last year was a down year for him. That room in Cleveland is deep. They have a lot of good corners there. They've added a ton of depth at the position. And I expected to see more out of Ward, but I think the Browns is one of those teams where that defense just played down to kind of the morale that that team had last year. I really do believe that. Did they do anything to change that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure they did enough to make us feel good and make the team feel good about it. And it really starts and stops with the quarterback and Watson and what he's able to do and whether or not the team will rise up with him. Saying that, I think Ward, again, that's pretty consistent play right there. Really good corner. Who would you pick above the two?
Ward could have the best season, but he hasn't touched 70 plus since 2021. I feel better about the other two names, and then Ward as more of the, hey, let's see what happens here. Maybe I can get a top 12 season from him because I can, but he's not there yet.
Okay. So what you want Ward
after Alexander and Snead?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Who was I comparing him to?
Snead.
Oh yeah. Alexander, Snead, Ward, 100%. Yeah.
Cool. All right, I'm writing it in.
I feel better about Ward, the player. He's safer. I mean, Snead, the player. He's safer.
Right. We're already at 17. Not bad, dude. We're cruising.
I guess.
Diggs I had at the end of this group. We said maybe we move him after the rookie group. Do we still feel good about that?
Yeah.
So I did have the rookies as the next group of guys, and it's really just the top 5 of the draft. That's Quinyon Mitchell. He's still 22 years old, picked by the Eagles in the first round of the draft. He was the first corner taken off the board. Terrion Arnold with the Lions, I believe, was the second corner taken off the board. He's still just 21 years old. Nate Wiggins was the third corner taken. He's 21 years old with the Ravens. He is more of that like elite, sticky one-on-one man corner. Cooper DeJean, I think, was 4th off the board, 21 years old with the Eagles. They now have this insanely deep corner room, but just a bunch of question marks across the board there. And then Kool-Aid was the guy that you and I were the highest on. He was taken in the second round by the Saints. Still, again, just 21 years old out of Alabama. A guy that, again, super sticky in man-to-man coverage. Do we rank these guys just in the the way they were picked? Do we just keep it that way? Or do we say we liked Kool-Aid better, we're going to go with him? Or
the only reason I don't say we go ahead and change that is because Kool-Aid is coming off of that foot injury or dealing with that foot injury this offseason. I think he could start kind of slow. So even though we like him a lot, it's not necessarily for 2024. And so given that, I don't think we insert ourselves too much here. Let's just leave it to the machines.
Mitchell 18, Arnold 19, Wiggins 20, DeJean 21, Kool-Aid 22. Dude, we're making moves here. So that's where Diggs will come in my tier 5. Marlon Humphrey is there as well, 28-year-old with the Ravens, 64.6 grade last year. DJ Reed with the Jets, 27 years old, 77.9 grade last year. Charvarius Ward, 28 years old, 82.6 grade last year with the 49ers. Jalen Ramsey, can't forget him. Going to be 30 this year, 67.4 grade with the Dolphins. Kendall Fuller, the Dolphins signed him as well, 29 years old, 84.1 grade last year. Rasul Douglas and Teron Johnson with the Bills. Both of them are 28 years old. They both had 80-plus graded seasons last year. That's my tier 5. A bunch of guys that are nearing the end of their career, probably have 1 to 3 years left, but most likely it's 2, and play at a very high level, right? And have consistently done that, or done that for the majority of their career, but you're not getting more than that you would trust, more than 2 years. You definitely aren't. So Charvarius Ward right there, you're looking at him, right? Back-to-back 80-plus graded seasons. He's kind of been that dude in San Francisco to have the edge rushers. He's definitely, potentially the guy we pick next.
Yeah, I was going to make a case for him, and it actually is kind of tangentially related to something I saw when I was looking at Derek Stingley, right? But when I was looking at the top man corners in the NFL for last season, of the top 10 corners who played the most snaps in man coverage per target, so on average, teams were just simply not throwing their way in man coverage. Of the top 10 corners in that list, only Derek Stingley, Jalen Ramsey, Jalen Johnson, and Sauce Gardner had grades above the 65 threshold, kind of that replacement level threshold, if you will, in overall coverage grading. That tells me that what we already know, which is that cornerback is exceptionally hard. So even the select few that can stay in position and in phase with receivers have a hard time finishing plays in coverage and making plays on the ball. It takes a special corner to really be able to do both. And when it comes to making plays on the ball, Charvarius Ward had 16 pass breakups and 5 interceptions last year. His career really took off once he went to San Francisco, which again is why environment is so important. And so if they kind of continue with that base cover 3 defense, I believe they have a new defensive coordinator too. I think that suits him really well. And I think he's just going to continue with what we saw the last 2 years versus what we saw the previous 4 with him, which was not bad at all, but he's really taken a next step in San Francisco. And I expect that to continue for the next couple of years. So for me, I think Charvarius Ward is the clear number 1 choice here in this tier.
Marking him in at 23. I agree with everything you said. He's done a great job there. 24 gets hard. And I do think for me, it's Diggs. Again, he's 26. He's a couple years younger than the rest of these guys. And he has shown high-end play, right? He's shown that he can do that. Just the injury, we need to see him come back from that. But for me, I think that would be my argument for the next guy. You're pulling up Humphrey.
Yeah, just taking a look to see, because, we liked Humphrey and he was a little off last year. There were some injuries. Could he bounce back? Yeah, but you mentioned, I think, the age difference there. And I think that's fair. Even if Diggs takes a little bit of time to get back to form, well, then say you write off 2024. Not that he's not going to play, but that you write it off and say Diggs is going to be 100% 2025. Okay, at that point, he's turning 28. So the age is still in his favor there. So you have at the very least, you're getting the same amount of runway you expect with someone like a Marlon Humphrey. possibly more if he really does come back sooner and can kind of get into form quicker than you anticipate. So I think that's fair.
Okay. All right. So I'm just
going to start clicking on some names here to see if there's anybody I want to really just throw in this tier 2. But I think Diggs is right here.
Yeah. So I have him at 24. Looks like we're going all the way to 32.
Yeah, let's do all the way to 32, right? We could start 3 in this platform here. We can run some nickel.
Yep.
You don't like the consistency of Greg Newsome just giving you like nice 69 grades every year?
I love Greg Newsome.
Only being 20.
He's the top. He's the top guy in my tier 6. I just think that you're never getting elite play out of somebody like him, and the guys I included in tier 5 have the ability to give you that, right? The 2 guys in the Bills we didn't talk about, right? But like both of them, 80 plus grading. Do we start talking about them?
I've always been a fan of Johnson, and Douglas has always kind of been scrappy. Better than I thought he was.
So scrappy, dude.
Yeah, sure. It's easy to be scrappy when you're 6'2", 209. All right, relax. I've always been a Johnson fan, and I don't know. I think again he's about a year younger. I think we saw his high end. Yeah, they're about the same. I guess it's just either or. All of a sudden you look up and there's a freaking trio of corners in Buffalo that work.
Dude, it's insane. They did an amazing job turning a weakness into a strength last year.
Yeah. Johnson's a year younger. Is that the difference here? Are we just gonna flip a coin on that? Or is that gonna be our tiebreaker?
I think so. And I think they might I don't quote me on this, but I think Johnson probably has more guaranteed years there than Douglas does. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go 25 and then 26. We haven't said Jalen Ramsey's name yet. I'm getting a little concerned.
It's just the time window, man. Tyson Campbell had a chance to come in here and he vomited all over himself last year.
Yep.
I think that was one of those I also said, I kind of like him coming into this year, but nobody remembers that because of my bland take.
I mean, Cam Smith is a guy, you're probably not seeing him on the list. But he's somebody I have
straight projection.
He had a 73.3 grade last year.
Yeah, but his playing time was so sporadic.
It was very sporadic. I think most weeks he didn't. Most weeks he didn't
even hit. And I like Cam Smith. I think I think I put a couple feelers and offers out for him, and nobody bit. It's one of those deals. You do a podcast like this, and then people think you like really know something that they don't. And like when you send them an offer for somebody, they're like, "What's wrong with the guy you're sending me? And what secret nugget of gold do I not know about this player that you're asking me for?" And it's like sometimes I just kind of like a player as a personal preference.
Dude, I couldn't have said it better. Like I've been absolutely just. It's been terrible, right? Like our rookie draft in our just traditional fantasy football league. Right before me is Worthy, Ladd, Pearsall, and they didn't take Brian Thomas Jr. And I'm like, I thought I was on an island with my, distaste for Brian Thomas Jr. Apparently, people believe what I have to say, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you shouldn't have been a coward. You should have taken the guy you wanted. That's what I stumped for every single episode here, and you didn't listen.
Stop right there.
I'm stopping right here.
DJ Reed. What about him, buddy? That's pretty darn good. And he's 27.
I guess. Yeah, there's no reason not to. It's just I don't think there's and it's like, okay, well, we're talking about what are we on? Corner 26? Why am I worried about touching 80? If he's going to give me a top 18, late teens, early 20s type of season, that's exactly what we're looking for, right?
Yes. And this would be 27. I think DJ Reed, again, and it's one of those situations where he doesn't have to take unfavorable matchups because Sauce is there. This is a guy that's graded extremely well and that they can match up well to, his strengths. So I like DJ Reed there. The remaining 3 guys in my tier 5, Marlon Humphrey, Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller, just seem old to me. And that's a struggle where, yes, you might be able to get a good year or 2 out of them. But are you taking that 1 year or 2 years over? You had Greg Newsome up earlier. There are other guys here. Michael Jackson in Seattle, who's also a little older, so that was a bad example. But Asante Samuel Jr. for the Chargers, 24 years old. Said Cam Smith already. Martin Emerson on the Browns, 23 years old. DJ Turner for the Bengals had a bad year. Emmanuel Forbes had a bad year, but those are guys that like kind of like him, right? Like I really like Emmanuel Forbes, and I think that he will have a bounce back. Tyson Campbell, yes, he had a bad year last year, but like I wouldn't be surprised if this year he's like, oh, all of a sudden he had his breakout year. He's entering his prime at, 24, 25 years old. So are you investing any of those guys? I mean, I didn't talk about Tay Banks on the Giants either. He had a rough year, but they invested in him to be a number one corner, and they let him try to do that, right? Like, do they do that again?
He's got some tough receivers in that division, though. It is very tough.
It is.
I love going to his player news tab, and it's just Deontay Banks just straight up insulting Emmanuel Forbes. So there's that. I think we're underselling Marlon Humphrey quite a bit here. He's only like a couple months older than some of these guys that we've named in Buffalo, and he's got the track record in Baltimore. You know what you're going to get there. Even if their pass rush kind of fell off a little bit towards the end of the year, it's hard to go wrong. There's really not much to the downside there, I think, in Baltimore. I passed him.
Yeah.
So I would go with Humphrey, I think, next. And then I don't know if you can leave off. Can you leave off Jalen Ramsey if you think he's going to have one elite season? He's not going to. Nope. That defense fell off too much, I think, right? Which is what we've been saying all offseason. So I got to stick to my guns there.
Mm-hmm. Marlon Humphrey at 28. I'm tentatively putting it in. Ramsey and Fuller. The edge rushers were non-existent for Ramsey last year. And he was coming off an injury. Like, he's going to be a year removed from that. I don't know. I think Ramsey has to make this list. I think 29 is just about as far as we can go. Because again, when he does play well, you're getting the best of the best in Jalen Ramsey.
Exactly. That could be a potential league winner. Let's go Humphrey, Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you look at the young guys like Deontay Banks and Emmanuel Forbes.
Me too. So I'm at 29. We have 3 spots left. So Greg Newsome, Michael Carter II, Mike Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr., Cam Smith, Martin Emerson, DJ Turner, Emmanuel Forbes, Tyson Campbell, Nate Hobbs. Nate Hobbs, oh my God, that's like my dude. Nate Hobbs is my dude. And are we really leaving him off the list? Roger McCreary had a really good year last year. And then there's a couple rookies, right? Like Bo Melton on the Cardinals. They picked him really early. Cam Lassiter for the Texans.
I'm a fan of Bo Melton.
Deontay Banks. Like, that's what I was saying. Like, corner is one of these positions where it is so deep.
It's deep when you get to this point in the game. You have your elite guys, you have your upside guys that may get there. And then you got just really good players, but again, subject to a little bit of the variance. And it's like the soup. I always say it's the soup. You get to the soup around the mid-20s at corner. I think A.J. Brown might have broken Emmanuel Forbes. Might have broken him.
Don't say that.
He might have broken him, and that's not a good organization.
He had an offseason of therapy. He's good.
That's he might be broken. I still like him. I'll still take him, but I'm probably now taking Deontay Banks over him just at this point. And I know Deontay Banks wasn't great either. And like CeeDee Lamb might break him.
I like that the edge rushers in New York got better. Improved. The defensive line is so good. It should be a decent situation for Banks to be successful. So okay, I'm good with Banks at 30. We have 2 spots left. I think I can't leave Forbes off the list at all. So if he's 32, he's 32. I think Hobbs for me would be 31.
Hobbs,
he's right there.
I know. I'm looking for a name that we might want to consider.
Bo Melton.
I like Melton, but no.
Saying
I wouldn't over Hobbs. Yeah, Max Melton. Yeah, I like both of the Meltons at their respective spots, but over Asante Samuel Jr.
That's tough too. I like him.
He's ascending.
He is, but he's very role specific because of his size.
I think Hobbs kind of is too, just because of his style. I don't know. I know he's bigger, but I don't know. I feel like,
yeah, but that situation got better too, right? In Vegas,
I guess it's still Vegas.
it is still Vegas.
Yeah,
there could be
I could go
10 guys that deserve these last two spots.
Yeah, we still haven't. I feel like we haven't talked enough about Newsome here in this spot.
Yeah,
but I think given Samuel's usage, he's only gotten better. Again, I don't care where he lines up as long as he lines up properly. You know, if he's a slot type guy or what have you, and kind of playing that nickel role, then so be it. He's still going to get me those high grades at the end of the day and help me win a week. It's the role I'm drafting him for.
Okay, 31, Samuel Jr. 32 is between Greg Newsome. I mean, Michael Carter II had an 80 grade last year. That Jets cornerback room is special, right? Like he's right there. He's right above Banks.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I have Michael Carter. I would love to have him on the top 30. I also have Forbes, so.
And then Trey Tomlinson, bro, like my freaking guy.
Let's just lock in Michael Carter II here and just call it a day. Until Emmanuel Forbes proves that he can bounce back, I can't put him top 32.
See, like that's cowardice.
That's not cowardice. I witnessed a murder on television.
What Emmanuel Forbes needs is guys that believe in him, people that have his back and will stand with him through battles.
No, he needs a better organization than the Commanders, who might not even be called that in 24 months.
They shouldn't be. Michael Carter, 32.
That's a lot of green. That's a lot of green.
Whew. Michael Carter, 32. The Jets have 3 guys that made this list.
They're arguably the top defense in the league.
Arguably, yep.
And Stephon Diggs isn't even in that division anymore. So
right. We got through that, and honestly, I feel like we could have gone to 50.
We could. I feel like 26 through 48 is like you can make arguments for any type of matchup you put in front of us.
There's other guys too. There's other guys too. More on the Colts, Hilton on the Bengals, Jamel Dean, right? Like there are other guys, but those guys are 30 already. Jamel Dean has had some injuries, so I didn't want to put him in this. Yeah. But like there are guys. There are more guys.
There's a lot for corner. I think perhaps strategic wise, is that a term that I'm using that properly? In a draft, I think you always want to nab one of like the tier 1 top guys.
Yeah.
And then depending on how, where you fall or find yourself as the rounds go on and you build out the rest of your team, if you can't get a second top 24 guy, you're going to have a lot of similar options to choose from that point, for the next several rounds. I think there's a group of like 20 plus corners that are all pretty similar. So maybe it's best to wait a little bit on those before nabbing them. We even talk about Marshawn Lattimore, who's inconsistent, but then he'll get motivated when he goes against Mike Evans. So that's just another name there. So yeah, there's a lot in this tier. I think he's fallen off a little bit the last couple of years. You kind of see it here. He is 28. I could see him outperforming a few of those names towards the back end of this list. Mm-hmm. I could also see him just kind of, again, it's the Saints, man. It's the vibes. I could see him just kind of continuing on the same trajectory he has been. And that just kind of leaves him in the mid 30-ish type range.
Damn, the Saints. Yeah, dude, the Saints might end up having a really good corner room. Like if things go, like I know you're saying things are likely to go wrong. And I tend to agree with you.
I am basing every decision I make this offseason off of things going wrong in New Orleans.
But if things go right, and the thing that stinks is like they've kind of messed up some of the guys I like. It's like guys I want to invest in, like Kool-Aid, who I love. It makes me second guess it.
Their scouts do really well, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I love how PFF made this graphic and doesn't have
Paulson Adebo in there. Your boy, yeah,
who was the best of the 3.
Was the best last year. We'll see again.
Yeah,
we said that could be a name. That's you're jumping out of the plane there and like you're hoping the parachute works, but you don't have a backup.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't yet, please give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch or listen to your podcast. Have a great day.
Go.